Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? I hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday evening. Welcome to another episode of a theme I've kind of been running a little bit lately, talking about the media wars that we're kind of dealing with from every perspective of the universe. And I've been bringing on some of the other podcasters and pundits that we listen to and kind of getting updates from them. And we're starting to introduce some new platforms. And we've got a special guest coming on here in just a minute or two. But one of the things that I need to do beforehand is kind of do a little bit of housekeeping for everybody and let people know what's going on, what is occupying our time and everything else. And so this is what we've been working on very hard over the last couple of weeks, and it's starting to come together. We're starting to get more content creators set up with what they need, the tools to start streaming on this new and unique platform called Looking Glass Media Coalition over at lgm.news. So this is kind of a big deal, guys. A lot of infrastructure, a lot of people that you're used to looking all over for. You're going to start finding them on one place at one time, and you'll be able to connect with them in a new and unique way. So this is really, really exciting stuff that we've been working on, and I'm hoping that our guest has enough fun that we get him plugged in on there too in the near future. So tonight we are testing out different stuff. Looks like we might be having a little bit of a Rumble issue. We'll check into that. I know that Rumble has been updating all of their stuff. They've been growing, and a lot of people have been having complications with Rumble. We might be having one of those tonight. So be it. We're still going out across a bunch of other platforms, and one of them is Knots TV, who has become a growing broadcaster in Canada, bringing people together much in similar ways as we have been on different platforms. So that's kind of the housekeeping out of the way a little bit. And without further ado, the one, the only CanadaPoli, Mark, welcome back to the show. It's been a minute since we got together for a chin wag. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Wayne. How are you?
Busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. There is never something to not talk about. So yeah, it's gonna. I imagine it's probably the same in your neck of the woods.
Today's been a busy day.
Yeah. I can only imagine, and we'll dig into a little bit of that. So it's been a little while since you were on the platform with us. So to kind of refresh some of the new followers and viewers and family out there, you run a podcast called CanadaPoli. You were actually one of my inspirations in starting this back in the day already. So tell the folks a little bit about that, and then we'll get into some of the juicier stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I think Canadian politics is interesting, but I used to really enjoy American politics, and I really particularly liked The Daily Show and Colbert. And I always thought the monologue at the beginning was the most fun part of the show. And it was the shtick was basically, this is whoever it is, this is their job. They're in charge of transportation, or they're in charge of, whatever, immigration, but it doesn't matter. And then the news story. And that's the joke usually. Like, that's all the joke takes. And I looked at Canadian politics and I thought, why don't we have somebody who's pointing out, this is Justin Trudeau. His job is to run the country, and look at this terrible, awful job that he's doing. So I do that over and over again for about an hour every single day. I've missed one day since 2018, since I started the podcast. So I'm on the, oh my goodness, 1,160 odd show now, and that's numbered since the 2019 election, which I lost. Oh well. But since then, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy doing the show. I've met some wonderful people, and I just enjoy talking about all the stuff that's going on. And I'm focused on Canadian politics and how the world, the broader geopolitics, the world politics informs what happens in Canada. Because what happened in Australia, the really kind of uber crackdowns that happened there came here in a different verse. Like it didn't exactly happen the same way, but you could tell they were part of the same song. It kind of rhymed. You're like, oh yeah, I hear that beat, like, and then the same thing in the UK, the same thing in blue states in the United States. And looking at all that madness, looking at all that craziness, I just I can't help but talk about it. There's so many crazy things happening. And then if you talk about it and you get censored, Elon Musk on Twitter, you got to talk about that. You got to talk about all the crazy stuff, people getting dropping dead. It was a big deal when the videos came out of China, but if footballers on pitches drop dead, that's normal. Don't you ask a question. Everything's normal here. Right. So I just think that I can't believe that there aren't more people pointing at this going, holy shit, isn't this crazy? Don't you think? I also, I try not to swear, and I try not to I try and look at it from an optimistic, if you can, standpoint. And I try and laugh at it, because holy shit, if you're not laughing, you're crying. And an hour of crying with me is not going to be fun. So,
and that's one of the things that first attracted me to following your work, was you brought this tongue-in-cheek, mocking humor that was articulate enough to dodge the canceling bullets that are.
No, they've canceled me. Oh, they canceled me. I think that they hate the fact that I keep showing up every day. I think they hate it. I think that if they could figure out how to demoralize me, they'd do it, but they haven't figured it out because they don't know what makes me tick. But I just enjoy telling. I think it's our story. I think it's the story of Canada as I see it. And I mean, I'm not perfect, right? I'm far from perfect, but I'm interested in what's happening in a way that other people around me aren't. And I can put it into something that is more bite-sized. And there aren't a lot of people who can sift through the crap on Twitter. And the reason I use Twitter is mainly because that's where people are making news. Like Danielle Smith is putting up a 4-minute video taking the piss out of Rachel Notley, who's the opposition leader in Alberta, for lying, basically. And to me, that's not Twitter. That's a direct line to Rachel Notley and Danielle Smith and that drama. And that's what I'm trying to show you. I want you, the audience, to make up your own mind. I'll tell you what I think, but also I'll tell you, don't believe me, because I'm just a shroom in my garage, man. Like, I get it wrong all the time. And I try and tell my audience if I get it wrong, but most of the time it's, here's this person. She's Danielle Smith, or she's Rachel Notley. This is her job. She's the leader of the opposition. Here's what she did. She said to Alberta, I wish that Justin Trudeau would override our democracy because I don't like what Danielle Smith did. So, I mean, that's funny, right? Like, that's hilarious to me. So that's what I do.
You do that so well, and that's I think we kind of occupy that same role in what we do, is taking those things that people don't necessarily know how to engage in, and we chew that up and we spit it out in more bite-sized pieces that make it more able for people to take that 1 out of 6 seconds and talk about something, because it is funny. It is so absurd. You said it. If you're not laughing, you're crying. Yeah. And it's just a never-ending succession of that. So we kind of occupy that space that's sorely required for people, and the people will go out of their way to continue to find it. And one of the things that made me chuckle is what infuriates them is that you're still here and you still show up every single day.
And I think they hate it.
They do. They absolutely
think they do.
That's the biggest. I'm the same way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't do it every single day. Not anymore. I used to, but that's because it's not because of them. It's because I'm occupied in other things. What I do for my platforms has changed and evolved somewhat, where I'm doing a little bit less of that digesting and disseminating, and there's more of us now. When you first started, you were the only one,
There wasn't
right?
anybody. Yeah, there wasn't anybody
Exactly.
else.
And
And the weird thing is, like, I remember what's her face. She came on right after me, almost weeks after me, and I thought, Jeepers Creepers, she's hilarious, and she's really. And I'm don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm super glad for everyone's success. I want people to be successful. The reason I did my show is because I couldn't find anything that I wanted to listen to, and now there's much more options out there. I still think my show's the best. Sorry, but I do. but I just it's sometimes it takes too long. And there are like Kian. I'm super glad for Kian's success. He's done a wonderful job spinning off from Rebel, becoming his own counter, like the counter signal in his own right. He's really established himself well, and I'm super happy for his success. That's great. And the Rebel News has found. Has hit their stride in there, I think, in kind of another level of Canadian news. But I'm always worried about how that's going to go, because Trudeau's targeting them quite a lot. And I mean, there's the potential for missteps. They're very focused on fundraising, and people don't like that. They're very focused on legal challenges and fundraising for lawyers. People, so there's a little bit of, but they do great work, and they do a lot of there's a lot of beneficial things that they've facilitated, Ezra's facilitated legally, that I don't think would have happened otherwise. So that's beneficial. True North, I'm really glad that they're established and they've got a whole bunch of exciting things on the horizon. But again, I'm worried that the more professional and established we've got in the alt media, the more opportunity for it to be usurped by the same forces that took over the established mainstream media. So, I mean, like, I reached out to True North and I said, hey, I do a daily show, and, I'm really long in the tooth and I do lots of stuff. Do you guys want to work together? And Anthony Fury said no. Actually, he didn't answer my question. He dodged the question, and he said, because I mentioned that I'm quite technologically adept as well, and I program things, and I do a lot of content marketing and all sorts of other stuff. And I mentioned that, and he said, oh, well, right. And he said, oh, well, we're not really interested in changing our vendors right now, talking about email and things like that. And I was like, well, that wasn't really the question I asked you, but if that's the answer, then I understand.
I've had that same experience with all of these guys, and you bring up some things that definitely are things that I think about when I see this growth, and there is a wild west in this information war, and that's literally what we're in the middle of, is an information war.
Yeah,
and there is a lot of holes.
Is it called fifth wave warfare? Fifth generation warfare?
Next gen warfare.
Yeah,
there's different terminologies for it, I suppose. But for me, I'm kind of the layman guy, so I try to use plain speak, and that's part of the problem. Is as this thing evolves, they keep introducing new vernacular that means absolutely gobbledygook, and try and influence everything in the discussion by it. And I'm kind of try to reel it back to that, but I see the same thing, and it's a reasonable expectation to be concerned with this, what they call alt media, because its intention is to be an alternative to the legacy media. Just like the Conservative Party is supposed to be an alternative to the Liberal Party, but as the weights shift, they suck to each other closer and closer to be filling that gap that they think the other is vacating. And as these platforms start to grow, I start to see some of the same similarities, that they're filling that in, and they're kind of duplicating what they're supposed to be replacing. And I try to stay outside of those kinds of things. And I know that these platforms are very cognizant of what we do, but rather than working with us, they see us as competition. That's my experience for the most part.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that I bury people in content. Like, I could produce 2 videos a day and not even blink, like, and still have time to do the things that I need to do. And I think I did 3 videos in one day, and somebody said, are you serious? Like, you posted one 40 minutes ago, dude. And something had happened, and I was like, no, but you have to hear.
Yeah,
And
I do long form interviews, and there's times where I'll do 2 or 3 interviews a day,
right,
right?
yeah, and so, like, it's one of those situations where if you have somebody who's good, I don't understand. I don't I don't understand putting out a subpar product when you've got an option to put a something better out, but whatever. I mean, it's not my thing, I guess. So, um, but it just makes me question the motivation. And I mean, like, the other thing is, um, somebody who's showing up, somebody who's grown an audience a few times, somebody who's putting out content anyway, you wouldn't want to have some kind of not partnership or some kind of reciprocal relationship. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't know.
I completely
The
agree. You know, that's like I grew up in racing, so why would you go to the track with one car when you could have two, right?
Right, or 3, yeah, and, like, everybody's working for the same goal. I don't understand,
Yeah,
and that's maybe my criticism for the right in Canada. There are people who are coming up who are very siloed, and they're worried about how they're gonna look if they're associated with you because the press is mean to you, and it's
yeah.
like, "All
Yeah,
right, guys."
I see a lot of that,
Yeah.
you know, and I talk about that an awful lot too, and I think that boils right down to our conservative mindset is what we're hardwired for. Success is created through competition, not collaboration, right? People tend to work harder, to be put more money into it, hire more people. That's how they measure success. And in this environment, I see the same thing, and then I see an overlap in a muddy water area where the activist groups are trying to be journalist groups, and everybody's trying to do everything because they're all in competition for the eyes,
Mhm,
you know, or funding, and
mhm,
it is literally the wild west out there in a lot of cases. But then there are the people that keep things grounded, and you're one of them, and I try to be that as well, right? Where we get to reel some of this back in and provide some consistency in what we're doing, and we actually, at the end of the day, I think are the ones that benefit the most through being able to collaborate and
mhm,
being able to see further and work together, ultimately be something that people look for rather than stumble upon.
mhm. Yep. Yeah, and, like, a lot of times I get a lot of feedback that people watch me for an extended period of time. Like, I have, reviews on my website now, and all of them, a lot of them say, "I've been watching you for 2 years. I've been watching you for 3 years. I've been watching you for 4 years. I remember when you were not, like, no face to camera," because I was originally anonymous. I was originally and, but I couldn't stay anonymous because my speaking is very, very, easily recognized, I suppose. But it's very interesting. People well, I treat my show like I'm talking to my best friend. If I had my best friend's attention about politics and they wanted to hear about what I wanted to talk about, this is what I tell them. And that's how I approach my show, and I hope that it comes across. And I try and be genuine. I try and look. I am genuine when I do the show, but I mean, I'm not trying to mislead anybody. I'm not trying. I don't enter my show thinking I've got to push this narrative today. I've got to make them think that vaccines are healthy and safe. I've got to make them think that they're not healthy and safe. I don't enter my show looking at that. I enter my show thinking, I wonder what happened today. I can't wait to tell my audience. Or if like, because I have 40 odd tabs that I collect through the day, like 40 odd stories that I'm going to talk about, and usually I've got stories to tell about each one, and I'm excited to tell those stories. I'm not excited to drive a narrative. I'm not excited to make people take action or anything like that. I like to read my reviews. I'm excited about that, which is funny. But I'm not trying to push anybody to believe anything one way or the other. In fact, I tell people during the show, go check it out on your own. But this is what I think. And more, my main motivation is I'm excited to tell the story. Like, and I want it to land. I want it to be a funny story or be an interesting story, something you go, huh, that's weird, or whatever. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about
So,
geopolitics.
there's a question that I have to ask you in
Oh,
this
sure,
though,
sorry.
because uh, uh, there were some things that started to impact, because that's what you do is very similar to, I mean, I started doing the same thing. You know, I found that I had the ability to sift through the swamp and find the things that were of interest to me anyways, that I could digest and share with people that I thought would matter. But then over a period of time where people started to send me more and more and more, I started to turn into a bit of a breaking journalist, where I started to do a little bit of what Kian focuses in breaking stories, new stuff, and things like that. Did you ever find yourself start of people starting to look at you that way, or to send you things like that, asking for your voice
Yeah.
to do that kind of stuff? Because I mean, I get whistleblowers and different things all the time. I expect you would too. So I see, notice. I mean, unless I'm missing something, you've managed to stick to what you started in, or do
Yeah,
you do
mostly.
that?
I expanded out to include some broader journalism or more deep dive stuff to do, like I do, or I was on the, and still am on the education beat. So when critical race theory reared its head in early 2020, I was I was one of the first. I did a 7-part documentary series on that. The Upper Grand District School Board in Guelph said and you can watch the video of the staff meeting where the staff say this to the trustees, and you can hear the trustees clap, but the staff say, quote, any system built by white people is inherently racist because it was built by white people. And I couldn't believe this. I sent this to every newspaper in town, every newspaper in Ontario, sent it to the Minister of Education. I said, this is racism. Like, I can't believe, what is happening here? And do you want to know what happened? Nothing.
Please.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nobody cared. Nobody
I
cared. Most people. I mean, is that shocking? That's not surprising, is it?
No, I was excited because I thought maybe something had happened the way you posed the question, because I've been working with groups here where I'm at as well. Same thing. I mean, it's all part of the same agenda, but now it's the child grooming stuff that is a cancer everywhere, that's
Mhm.
starting to raise
It's
its
still
head.
they're still doing critical race theory as well as the gender
Yeah.
ideology. Yeah,
Now they're just piling it on.
yeah.
Is
They're both.
it?
It's both. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. They're building off of one with the other and continuing to pile it on. So that's something we could really rail on. I could really rail on for a long time, but I'm sure we'll come back to that
Yeah.
through geopolitics.
Yeah. But
Because
just to finish,
go ahead.
just to finish the thought. Yeah, I published that series. I shopped that series around a little while. I shopped it around for probably a year. It got some clicks. People were interested. People reached out and said, we're running in the 2022 trustee election to stop this nonsense in schools. And I was like, we're not going to win. I'm sorry, we're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. We're not organized enough as a block, as a group. Most people don't care. Most people don't see education as their responsibility, unfortunately. If you have kids in the system, then you do. But as soon as your kids are done, you're like, glad I'm done with that. I'm never thinking about it again. But a lot of taxes go there. But the breaking news stuff, I don't know how to measure the success of it. Like Kian's following Kian is following a business model that looks similar to Ezra Levent's.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how he learned to make money. That's how Ezra makes money. So that's how he learned to make money. He makes his list. He has subscribers. It's great. It's good. But it's just the same. You know what I mean?
Cookie cutter.
Yeah. It's like, but I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't have a system, I couldn't be like Mark P breaking news, CanadaPoli, like now just here's CPAC. That's breaking news. Like,
is that critical race theory stuff? Is that on your website still? People can find
it's
it there?
Upper Grand District School Board. Actually, it's on CanadaReport.co.
Not on this one. I got the wrong
yeah,
one.
I use CanadaReport.co to collect all my links and stuff. I probably did that bad, but I collect. It's like a Drudge. It's like a Drudge style website. Like Drudge Report.
Right.
And it's got it at the top.
So just before you came on the show, I kind of had a direction that I kind of wanted to go with things, because you do focus so much on Canada, but I know that what happens in Canada is so influenced by what happens everywhere else in the world. So I kind of wanted to take, for you guys out there watching, Mark through a bit of a reverse engineering process. So what are you paying attention to right now in the U.S. that has implications, or the ripple effect that that we need to be watching or should be paying attention to or talking about between the U.S. and Canada right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot going on between the U.S. and Canada. Like, just watching the election the response to Arizona, the midterms just happened. There's a whole lot of Republicans who are excited about, holding people accountable, et cetera. And I often talk about how if we don't fix the 2020 election in the United States, and we can't fix it, I can't fix it, you can't fix it. It's not our responsibility to fix, but the West, it kind of is our responsibility to fix. If we want to have faith in our electoral system, there's some pretty big questions to ask about that, and the Kerry Lake Hobbs Lake Hobbs election. So that's one aspect of kind of geopolitics that's simmering, and that's a constant thing. And I think people are sick and tired of hearing about it too, because election interference has been the
Been a
drums
massive
being
problem for a decade.
well,
In the
but since
public space.
2016, since 2016, it's been shoved down your throat. Donald Trump stole the election. The next person didn't steal the election. We have to accept these election results. Will you accept these election results? Oh no, all this crap. And people are sick and tired of it. But there are some serious questions that we need to answer about that. The other aspect is of course free speech, and we kind of touched on that in the green room. Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and that was a whole. I mean,
do you think that's breaking the dam down of the election
No.
issue and the free speech issue?
I'm still shadow ban.
Well, and I'm in the same situation, and
Yep.
that is starting to become a story, and I'm starting to push that question in the States. Does Trudeau have pictures of Elon with sheep, or why is Elon afraid of setting free the Canadian journalists?
I'll tell you why. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. Right now, we have C11 in force already. C11, all this stuff, the legalese around it, the bills that are in front of the Senate and Parliament right now, House of Commons, are dotting your I's and crossing your T's. The censorship bills are in place, and Elon Musk talks often about how he will abide by the law. He won't go around the law. He will abide by the law. So if you come into a country and the country leadership says this is the law here, and you're not allowed to tell the citizens that this is the law here, because that's the law here. Elon Musk his hands are tied, so he can do what he can do, but up until a certain point. And he's playing a high stakes game. He said, "I'm not suicidal." He said that there was a Spaces that he was at, and there was another suicide thing where he was saying like, "Nope, not suicidal." But he understands the stakes here, and he understands that. I mean, who murdered Barry and Honey Sherman?
Right.
You got to wonder.
I think about that quite a bit, actually, and I mean, we talk to people in different fields all the time, and when I talk to people in the intelligence sector, they're concerned for his well-being, shall we say, and we've seen historically in the last decade where that's not above the other side of the fence to do those kinds of things. So I think that's a real going factor, and I see though with a two-pronged thing with what he's doing, because what he's done, he's fighting the free speech thing in the States, but Article 230 is coming undone there too in the States.
It is. Yeah, they pulled it. They actually pulled it from, so the analogous one is C18. This is the news thing. So they passed it in Australia, and they said to Facebook and Google, you have to pay our news people out of your profits or something like that. And they said, fine, we'll just shut you off. No more news on Facebook in Australia. And then in the United States, they took that and they tried to pass it along with Canada. So Canada, I don't know if C18 is stalled. It doesn't seem like it, because Trudeau he had fakes a lot. It seems like it's stalled and then it's law. But these guys pulled it from, there was a must-pass defense bill, and they like to package little speech things like this in must-pass bills like that, and it was pulled. So I don't know why it was pulled in the States, but yeah, that was something. I mean, that's in the free speech era. That's roundabout free speech, because what they're trying to do is launder money, pull money from Google into their coffers, and what they'll do with it is exactly what they did with the NGOs, right? They're funding.
I think the pattern is going to show itself out of FTX, basically. And I interviewed a fellow named Jason Fick a couple of weeks ago, and he's got basically the Supreme Court by the short hairs, where they have to repeal 26 years worth of judgments based off of the 230 amendment. And so this is creating a lot of panic in the investment side of things because of exactly that. There's going to be lawsuits coming out. It's going to be a feeding frenzy on some of these platforms once some of these judgments get repealed. That's a whole other story. But the thing is that as much as we're fighting the battle here in Canada, and Elon won't bother, break the law here in Canada, we're actively seeing Google campaigning against censorship laws in Canada, and we're seeing some of these other censorship battles starting to be won in the States, and some of the, I think, what might actually prove more effective down there is I don't think they're going to get Hunter Biden, but I do think they're going to get Katie Hobbs. And those kinds of things start to steamroll and snowball down there. And I think at the end of the day, they're going to get to a point where they're going to be looking at Canada and being seriously confused as to what they're going to do with it, because they're just not going to be able to leave it alone, especially when it comes to the media. But I think we're going to start to see a big shift, and then they're going to start looking at Canada a little bit differently.
Well, they're already going after speed. They don't want people speaking openly and freely about anything. They want to be able to shut people down. They want to be able to shadow ban people. And do you think Google, so you're talking about Google being starting action against these bills. I don't think they're the good guy, though. Like, they may not want
absolutely not. And to me, that's a red flag of how extreme it is when Google and YouTube start doing active marketing campaigns to say, "Hey, help us fight the censorship that's coming to Canada." Or are you aware of? I find that seriously disconcerting when even the most radical guys on the left are concerned about what is coming in Canada.
Well, but I have to figure what's their motivation. Like, because if they're, let's say Google and the government are hand in glove. So what do they care about if citizens get censored, so long as their servers keep getting paid for searches and people keep using G Suites and stuff? I'm not like, what is the motivation? What do they get for protecting this free speech? But at the same time, they harvest your location. You carry around a hot mic, and if you say ladder too loud, your Facebook feed's full of ladders. Or do you need home improvement? You're like, oh, maybe we should remodel the bathroom, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, remodeling the bathrooms everywhere, right? So like, it's listening to you. It's this companion that sells itself as a benevolent genie, almost. Like, you've got a million wishes on Google. You can just keep wishing, right? Keep searching that Google, and it wants to deliver whatever you want. But there's something, the other side of this equation. We're not seeing it. So I'm not sure what their angle is. I don't know what's going on. Is it just money? Is it pure?
Without controversy, they have no draw. They need controversy and sensationalism to.
I don't think Google. I don't think so. Google's like, if you think to yourself, is there a better way to get wax out of my ear? You're like, I'm going to Google that, and you Google it, and you're like, holy cow, there totally is a better way to get wax out of my ear. So like, I don't think they need controversy. I existed with Google. I remember when Google. So I was an early adopter. I was a sysop of a BBS. Do you know what that means?
No.
Most people. Okay. Oh, see, perfect. So a sysop is a system operator of a BBS, which is a bulletin board system, which you had to dial in. I used to dial in. This is going to be super geeky. We played Legend of the Red Dragon, which was called Lord. But I used to dial in on a 14.4 baud modem, and my parents would get angry at me when they could hear the modem go beep beep.
Yeah, so, I remember
they were like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. So I'm long in the tooth, and I'm long in the tooth with the internet. Like 1995, I had my first computer, which was ridiculous, and it was connected to the internet. And Alta Vista was the web browser, or was the search engine. I can't remember the browser. It became Firefox. Oh, I can't remember. It'll pop into my head. Anyway, Alta Vista did not really have search index people. It had money that advertisers gave it to place it in the search. Right? It was like, if you want to be number one for your local drywaller, then You pay us. We'll take your money. We're like the yellow pages. That's it. That's what search was in 1995. So I remember Google search in 2002 or 1999 when they were like, don't be evil. And it was just a blank page that had a search button. And that was it, because they were just trying to deliver a result. I don't think they need controversy. I was quite happy when Gmail became a thing, because I thought, this company, I could trust this company. And now I'm like, why is this company pretending to care about my rights? I don't trust this company at all.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think what it is, I think it's the same thing as ultimately at the end of the day, what it is for Musk. These guys are all hell-bent on AI. And the only way to simulate human behavior is to have the most massive amount of accurate human behavior that they can to glean data from. And the data that they've been gleaning for the last couple of years is so off kilter because of everything that's been going on, that they're not.
I think that's why. I think that's why they did it.
AI.
I think that's why they did it. If you had an AI, and let's pretend you're China and China's got an AI, and you're Google's got an AI, and you're Apple's got an AI. So Google has this opportunity with education, and China has this opportunity because Google stores servers in China. Okay. So Google and China have online school because of COVID. Lucky them. It's amazing. What would you do if you had an AI and thousands of hours with millions of children's online school? What would you do? You'd learn how kids behave. You'd learn how kids behave in grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4 and grade 5 and grade 6, all the way up to grade 12. And you'd find out that by the time grade 12 hits, they're not online very much. But you'd have a sampling, and a huge sampling of elementary kids, and a medium sampling of middle kids, and probably a very small sampling of older kids. But then you've got their phones. So to me, I think it was a data harvesting, a data collection.
Absolutely.
It was a trainer.
And if Elon wants to be the first one to have that human interface, and he's competing directly with Google, the only way that he's going to get global data on a scale big enough to still stay in the race at all is by buying something like Twitter, which is the biggest study of human behavior on the planet in the digital space.
So that's interesting to me, because I would say that there's probably bots outpopulate humans at least 2 to 1. But do you think more? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the shape of Twitter is, but I would love to know humans versus bots. And then how many does one bot control multiple accounts, or is each account its own bot? If one human controls multiple AI enabled accounts, I want to see that too. Like, that's a medium, that's like a cyborg account, but it's not really a bot account, but it's kind of a bot account. So I'm interested. And you say it's a study in human behavior. Yeah. I mean, an AI is going to look at that too, but there are chat bots. There are ideologically motivated bots, which is interesting to say, right? Ideologically motivated, violent extremist bots. And there's a whole, subset of the communication on Twitter that is just garbage, that like doesn't have any real bearing on real human interaction at all. And I think that bears noting. Like, Twitter is real life, not really, like to a point, but not really. Twitter's real life when you're watching the video of Rachel Notley and Daniel Smith, because that's real. What's happening there is real, unless it's together, right? And then it's not.
I mean, the video itself is real, but the charade is a fraud when her husband is the head of QP marketing and PR and is continuously running interference on Rachel's behalf. And
Rachel, not okay. I was going to say,
yeah. Her husband is the head of PR and marketing for QP Alberta. So he's been, and who is the biggest employer in Alberta? QP. So she's got the
powerful.
That's a power duo, right?
Well, when you look at the education, there's another guy who put this together, and he's got a lot of data on this. He sent it to me as well. I can't remember his name, so apologies that I don't know your name off the top of my head, sir. But he was talking about how basically the USSTF was the biggest, most well-funded political party in Ontario, and they got like 80 out of 111 candidates or something like that. They got 86 elected, and that's a great record. And so the school board thing is stacked in the same way. Like we're just not organized. We're running against a well-oiled machine who understands how to win, and
A
we're not that.
heavily invested, well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
One of the stories that I covered, this would be last fall or winter already, was a small group in Ontario that had put in a writ of mandamus to demand the Ontario Teachers Union divest $236 billion worth of assets that were invested in the teachers' pension assets that are invested in Pfizer, Moderna, Microsoft, 3M, all of those essential services that our government's deemed this uber national corporations. That's where all the teachers union pension money is invested in, those kinds of corporations. So when they're invested in the corruption themselves, and to me, I say that plainly because on that investment list, they were invested hundreds of millions of dollars into Moderna before Moderna ever had a product. How does the Ontario Teachers Association get that much money tied up into a company and a product that has never made anything and nobody's ever heard of? Like, I mean, I just don't buy coincidence that they were just lucky to see them growing. So, I mean, to
Super
me,
interesting.
when I see these power duos like Rachel Notley and her husband with behaving with such desperation and vitriol like she has the last couple of weeks, that's to me screams guilty conscience and crook. But that's
so I often talk about how politicians, well, look at the 2020 election. Joe Biden had 15 people attending his hula hoop thing, right? There weren't many people there at all. And Donald Trump had people screaming, they were chanting, "We love you."
tens and tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands of people would wait outside to see Donald Trump. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen popular presidents. George W. Bush was a popular president. Barack Obama was a popular president, and people loved him. And people really loved Trump, and Biden won. And that is confusing. That is a situation where you're just like, how does that happen? And so to bring it back to what we're talking about, Edmonton and Rachel Notley and Calgary and the whole shebang, you can have a politician who's loved to the point of people chanting, "We love you," and that guy loses. So in Canada, nobody's chanting, "We love you, Pierre Poilievre." I don't know if they're chanting, "We love you, Danielle Smith." They might be. Danielle Smith's doing pretty well. But that doesn't necessarily translate to if they've got CUPE wrapped up and all of those voters, that's thousands of voters you can count on in a way that you can't count on commitments at the door. And so how do you battle against that? Danielle Smith is doing her best. And well, the other part is how many people have been imported and put into Calgary, into the main city centers, particularly Calgary and Edmonton. And if you put that many people into Calgary and Edmonton and they win, meaning they turn the vote. I mean, if you put that many people in Ontario and Quebec and they all vote Liberal, what happens to the country? Everyone, right? It turns Liberal. And so it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Yep. They're playing a different game. We're playing Danielle Smith's super popular and she's going to win. And they're playing, ha ha ha, we've cheated and we're going to win. And we don't get it. We keep going after that football. Lucy's put that football up and she says, "We're not going to move it this time. I promise. We're not cheating. Everything's fine." And we run up and we're like, "We're going to do so well." Kick. Oh, and we fall flat on our stupid faces because we're stupid. And I don't say that because I'm trying to be mean to people, but I feel like we really should play in reality. We should start looking at this and going, "Oh shit, like we're staring down the barrel of a loss and we don't realize it yet."
Yeah, I agree with you on all of that, and I look at what Danielle is doing in Alberta, and I've met Danielle a few times when she was a journalist. She was, her and I were covering that fair deal panel that Jason Kenney ran out there. That was just it was such a joke. It was such a joke. We'd show up at these things and the place would be packed and the entire audience was NDP staffers, right? So the entire panel, this whole tour was only getting feedback from NDP staffers, right? So
well, and that's another way they stack the decks as well, because if those staffers are there, they'll shout down somebody like me, right? They'll say, "Oh, this guy he doesn't represent us. This isn't what we want in Alberta."
I heard more about sex rights for male sex workers than I even knew existed in Alberta. I didn't know that was a problem, but so it's she's got a fine line to dance there. And I think given the situation that she's in with only having a short runway before she has to face an election, I think she is doing some impressive things in trying to be that Ron DeSantis in Canada. And people underestimate what she brings to the table in that respect, because she was one of the first ones calling out the UN SDA and the Migration Compact. She was
I think she's doing a great job, and I think that her messaging is great. I just think that we being people who want to see her continue, and I'm not in Alberta, so I have a limited amount of input that I can give on it because it's not my province, and etc. But I just feel like if people think that she's got it in the bag, I think they're not seeing the whole picture, and I hope that she understands the uphill battle that she's got, and not because what she's doing isn't popular, not because what she's doing isn't resonating, but because the unions have the city centers wrapped up and they understand math. And for whatever reason, the Conservatives, rural, sure, those seats are really safe, but that doesn't win the election.
Those parachuted city officials that are all making bank off of sanctuary city incentives and carrot sticks, created by the Bill Gateses and the Rockefellers in these, strong mayors committees and organizations, NGOs, nonprofits, and nudge groups. They're rampant. When you've got the mayor of every major urban city that is getting these kickbacks and payoffs from these organizations for doing, their job. They're not breaking any laws, but what they're doing by it has absolutely nothing to do with the public or morality or democracy or anything else. They themselves are, they're not necessarily breaking the law, but it's such a universal swirly of the same wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. How do you see, how do we stop that cycle in your opinion, Mark?
Oh my goodness. I'd like to, well, I mean, the problem is that there's so much money that is continuing to incentivize this. The $600 million media bailout from the government is, okay, let's back it up just a little bit further. Controlling the frame with which things are looked at keeps people within your control. So if you control the narrative, then you can lie with impunity because the people who are talking about the narrative, namely the media, will back you up. And so James Lindsay, you know who James Lindsay is?
I think so.
He's the conceptual James. He's the one of the critical race theory guys. He worked with Peter Boghossian, and he got Mein Kampf printed when it was rewritten about white men, basically. So James Lindsay was talking about how wizardry is creating a frame and keeping people lost within the frame. And the only way to win is to break out of the frame. So the money that the government is spending on NGOs to fight climate change, on NGOs to fight hate speech, all of this stuff goes to establish and maintain that frame. We have to be worried about climate change. We have to be worried about hate speech. If people are fearful, then that's wrong or something like that. That's all within this frame. We get lost in the frame. We argue about things within the frame, but things are happening outside of the frame. Geopolitics, the world, continues. And we're not talking about real problems. We're talking about things within the frame. We're bamboozled, we're lost, and it's a spell. And the only way to get out of it is to break out of the frame. So
I call it the satanic lullaby.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I refer to when I talk about that spell. Is exactly that, and they keep us moving with the noise in that frame. I see it as the pitch, the rules of the game that we're allowed to communicate and play by, and if you don't, well, then you get genocided in the game or canceled in the game. Stefan Molyneux talked about it, where the council culture online was the litmus test to see if society would accept genocide in real life. Because if we would accept the genocide of people on the digital space, where we put all of our social value in, now we value each other, based on our digital avatar existence. So if people will accept you being canceled in the digital space, they won't notice you being gone from reality, 5 minutes later, kind of thing. So I think that's a big, the biggest part of their tool, and they maintain that law, that spell, through a never-ending, incessant bombardment of propaganda and fear porn and distraction and wars and all of these things. But none of that insanity
that we pay for.
That we pay for, right?
That we pay for. Yeah,
right, and it's really straight out of the MK Ultra playbook. They've just leveraged technology to mass use this.
Yeah, well, and people have made comparisons to a Weimar kind of era again. The comparisons to the late 30s or mid 30s to late 30s of Nazi Germany, just before the Second World War really got hot, when Germany was invading the Rhineland and moving through Europe unencumbered, unstopped, right? Everybody thought, oh, just appease them, it'll be fine. But again, everything we know about the Second World War is gone through that same lens, as it has gone through. If what we know of the last 6 months about history, if you look at just our media and read about the last 6 months, it would give you a very different story than what actually happened. And I think that that's true as well. If you look at the history books from now, I guess modern history books about the Second World War, it would give us a very different idea of what happened than what actually happened. And so the lessons of history are lost, and we're doomed to repeat them, and we are repeating them, and we're funding it too. And it's just wild.
Every time there's a global advancement in technology, we repeat the lessons.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's very, this growing pain of having to relearn this lesson is not ideal. I think that there are better ways for our society to move forward.
There's a lot of parallels, and for me, that's what I find fascinating is history. I've been studying, the historical geopolitical effects of war since I, could start reading. Pretty much, that was always my entertainment and hobby that I geeked out on. I mean, I grew up in a place where all we had was CBC, so it wasn't hard to find a distraction.
It used to be good, though. I remember when I was proud of the CBC and BBC to a certain degree. Like, I thought that there was value in some of the programs that they did in, like, the 90s.
I was interested in Wayne Gretzky or John Wayne. So if it wasn't, as a teenager and as a kid, those were kind of what I was interested in. So I gravitated to historical conflict and geopolitics and those kinds of things. And I started to see every time there was an advancement in technology, one side or the other would seek to leverage that for their gain lands, and until there was a parallel ability. The first guys that had cannons slaughtered everybody else until everybody had cannons, right? And I think that what they've been able to use so effectively is the technology that we accept as normal right now. I mean, long in the tooth too. I remember a day where, not that I still remember, where cell phones, internet, and computers didn't exist.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, anybody born after 1982 cannot imagine the world without cell phones, computers, and the internet. They
Yeah.
can't even
I went,
imagine it.
I got a job in 2002, 2000, early 2002, let's say late 2001, early 2002. I was interviewing late 2001, and nobody had MapQuest. No, nobody had GPS. GPS was very like if you had it, it was in a family vehicle, and I was driving around an Acura, not an Acura, an Accent. I was not rich. Accent, Hyundai. Okay, so I was driving this Accent, and I remember printing off the directions to the job, and my parents, and I didn't have a cell phone because I was between plans. My parents bought me a cell phone when I graduated college, but I hadn't graduated yet, so I didn't have the cell phone yet. That's why I didn't have a cell phone. My parents were like, "Call us when you get there," and I was like, "I'll be fine. Like, it's gonna be fine." But now I'm a parent, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have called my parents. Like, I should have done. But I remember printing off the MapQuest and driving down the 401, reading the map, like it was line by line, and trying to figure the map. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And I wasn't late for the job interview or anything like that, but it's unbelievable how much technology has changed. And you're right. There are people who wouldn't believe how people got along way back when, like way back when.
If we lost the internet and the ability to have Google Maps right now, people would not be able to get across their city. People would be
people wouldn't be able to get across town. Yeah, it would be so much. It would be so funny.
And good luck finding a paper map, guys.
Yeah, it is certainly quite interesting how quickly we became reliant on these computer, internet connected computers. Because I remember remembering phone numbers. Right? Like when a friend would tell me a phone number,
I still remember a half a dozen of those phone numbers.
Yeah, I still have a couple of phone numbers in my head as well. And because you have to actually like dial them way back in the day. Yeah. No, has technology helped us? I think people would be shocked. I think absolutely shocked. People would not understand what to do. And then probably 2 weeks later, everybody would just be fine with it. Everybody would get back
100%, 100%. Yeah. But, and this goes back to that again, that satanic lullaby, and how the media has weaponized this advancement in technology, and they've had that leverage point against the people of the world. And we're now starting to get more organized and get better, and we're not a parallel to them yet, but we're starting to become a force of resistance against it on a global scale, I think.
Maybe enough people are talking about it. Certainly, I think that it's interesting that when you have this media funding, we're funding our own opposition. Taxpayers are funding all of these NGOs, and they're creating this spell. And that's a weird shorthand for it, but it has the impact. It has the same effect of 100% confounding people. And so we're propagating this continually, and all of media is built like this. The TV shows, the structure of it, even old TV shows, but it's less in your face because it had to be palatable to the people in like the 80s and the 90s, but it's still there if you know what to look for. And breaking out of it will be very difficult because it is ingrained in people's identities. Like there are people who well, they would never even entertain that they'd been lied to. Because they themselves couldn't lie on that scale. So they couldn't believe that somebody could lie to them at that scale. And so they just reject it. I don't know how you even begin to fight back against that. I mean, the way you do it is starve them of money, but they've been just using our money.
Well, I mean, we could go take a swing into the geopolitical here to kind of cap this off a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry.
But to the money. So long as things keep going here right now and they keep printing money and it becomes worthless, absolutely less than dirt,
Mhm.
the way they're going. They're creating a situation on the planet through this whole Western agenda that the other side of the planet really doesn't want to partake or play in, and they're creating alternatives in this whole BRICS thing. And
Yep.
we've surpassed the event horizon here on ever paying the debt on what they've printed already.
Shh,
So
shh. Don't
um,
tell people.
so
National
the
security,
engines
man.
are the engines aren't even off, or burned out on the plane. The wings are off of the plane already,
Well,
and
I see. I think that,
crashed.
yeah, you're right. Like, I think that. So there was a debt crisis in '95, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And everything was fine. Everybody was like, "Cool, it's cool, Canada, you're cool. We're cool. Everybody's cool. It's fine." So, when you say we're never going to pay off the debt, what we mean is we're probably never going to pay it off, but it's cool. It's fine. So no,
It'll manage itself.
those budgets balance themselves every day.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, the problem with that is that, of course, they want the um, in order to reset the fiat currency. And I mean, this is just getting into like another 2 hours of discussion. But if you look at a fiat currency, it only has a certain amount of time that it should be in effect before it crashes and is worthless. But we've pumped so much money into this, it should have crashed in '99, I think, and then again in 2008, and again in COVID times. But we're just pumping so much money to keep it afloat, that it's almost 40 years past its 40-year sell by date, right? Like, and previously, in order to fix these problems, they've had a war, and then the debts get wiped, and everybody says, "Oh man, we were never going to pay those anyway," right? And so, like, and you get a situation where you get a reset, but we're trying to do the reset without the hot war, and that doesn't work because everybody's still got property and stuff. So how's that going to work? They're just going to crash the system, is how that's going to work. They're going to blow it all up and say, "Oh man, I mean, good thing nobody died though, but it's just like a war. Shucks. I can't believe that happened." Yeah, right. And then the government's going to print money, and they're not going to have any money for certain people, but they'll have tons of money for other certain people. And right, like, I can already see how this is all going to play out. It's very easy.
I got all of the patents delivered to me yesterday or the day before for the U.S. digital bank currency.
Ooh,
It's
fancy.
so this is exactly, those are the people that are going to get the funding, that are going to be allowed to do business. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
Have you ever seen Demolition Man?
yes.
Right. So we're the Edgar Friendlies. When my favorite part of the movie actually is after Taco Bell. I like when they go to Taco Bell because I worked at Taco Bell and I thought it was hilarious. I was like, Taco Bell wins? That's weird, man. Remind me to tell you a story about the meat. But my favorite part of the movie is when he goes down and meets Edgar Friendly and he offers him a burger, and Stallone's like, "Fuck, fine," and he takes a bite, and Eddie's like, "It's rat." He's like, "It's a pretty good burger, though." I would totally eat the burger as well, for sure. When I worked at Taco Bell, the joke was, in Guelph, there was a dumpster out back, and everybody said it was cat meat, which is obviously ridiculous. But when I worked there, I would get the deliveries, right? And so the box for the taco meat at Taco Bell comes in a box that says 100% real beef. That's what it says. But that's the brand name. The brand is 100% real beef. And I was like, it's got ingredients. Hold on, it's got an ingredients list. What the heck? So I'm looking at the ingredients list, and the ingredients list is like minced taco filler. And I was like, it's minced taco filler? If I had a cell phone at that point in time, I still eat it. I still eat Taco Bell now to this day.
I kind of have gotten spoiled by the straight from farm to table kind of living now. So when I put some chicken in the oven, it's the same size when it comes out as it was when
Fair
it
enough,
went in. Right? So I'm kind of enjoying that these days. A whole lot less Taco Bell since I've gotten off of the road from being the boots on the ground kind of stuff. So
I don't eat Taco Bell very often, but I don't turn my nose up. There's a time and a place for a chili cheese burrito supreme or something like that. I promise. But it's not every day, because if you do that to yourself, that's bad. You shouldn't treat yourself bad.
Yeah, I saw the McDonald's movie.
Yeah, man. The fries, the fries at Taco Bell aren't that bad, but
Yeah.
I wish they would. Well, I wish they would go back to the lard, frying them in the lard, because the fries are a lot better, Like
Yeah,
saturated fats, you just should not eat all that many saturated. Like you shouldn't eat it every day, right? But
well,
that's up to you. That's not the government or McDonald's responsibility.
but it's not carbon friendly because that comes from from animals, right? If they're using lard and stuff, right? So you got to be careful. We got to play this game, with them until we win, right?
That's what I was gonna say. I guess maybe we'll end on this. I don't think that we should play the game. I don't think that we should kowtow to these people in their language and their craziness. Like, I think that we should point out that this is a scam, that it's a gateway, just like COVID. And you couldn't question COVID unless you're a doctor. You can't question climate change unless you're a climate change scientist, whatever that is. You can't become a climate change scientist without being trained on how climate change is going to kill us all. So yeah, right. Like I can see temperature graphs, guys. I'm pretty sure that I don't need a whole bunch of training to figure out that this is all bullshit. Like, so
go ahead.
it just, and it just, it's one of those things where I wish that more people were brave enough to speak about that kind of stuff, to say that no, this is, even if Toronto in July and August can get up to 31 degrees and sometimes 40 degrees. Okay, is 42 that much worse? Why? Please explain it to me. Similarly, New Delhi or anywhere in India or Dubai, or you pick your place, in July and August, they get way hotter than 40 degrees, right? On your outlier days. People live there. It doesn't look like spontaneous forest fires wildfires aren't happening. It's not a situation where the world is spontaneously burning in the Middle East. That's not political, right? So like when people tell me it's going to increase the world's temperature by 2 degrees, I'm like, why do you care? Who cares? Enjoy it. It'll probably be great. Like, if you go how many degrees south do you have to go to raise by 2 degrees? Like, what's the problem here? When I go down to South Carolina, it's warmer than it is in Ontario. Are those people dying more than here? No.
The whole thing is about money. There's no science that bears out any of the hysteria or terrorism, and because that's exactly what it's turned into, is eco-terrorism. And I got a chance to talk to oh geez, I just had his name a moment ago when my mouth has dropped it. Former Greenpeace guy, Patrick Moore, yes. And he couldn't have said it better than he did when he was talking to Canada's best known journalist,
Rachel Gilmore.
No. No, not Rachel Gilmore, but but what he said was that there was a time when he realized at Greenpeace that they'd won all the battles and they had become a business, and he was the last actual scientist on the board of a company that had absolutely not a scientific motivation left in it.
No mandate left because they succeeded. Yeah. But they were so successful, they had all this money. Yeah. No, I know. Right.
Yep. Yeah. So, and that thing has turned into, I think, the business model that the entire corporate world, that it was not just happy controlling their little city or town or even their province or state or even their country anymore. Those corporations now want to own the whole world. And it's that same driver, I think, that same motivation, the same people, the same corporations.
Greed. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
They're very greedy. It's frustrating though to watch. It's frustrating to watch.
For when I refer to playing the game, my version of playing the game is here, hold my beer, watch me, right? I don't play their game in any way, shape, or form, and I go a long ways out of my way to try to creatively upset their game. And I think we're slowly but surely gaining ground on them. The pendulum is starting to swing, but whether we're ever going to learn a lesson enough to actually change it, that remains to be seen, I think.
Yeah, well, there have been times in history where it has been uncomfortable to speak, to articulate your position, your political allegiance, your or political alignment. Um, and it- Growing up, that wasn't true while I was growing up. In the 80s and the 90s, you could be a lefty or a righty, and everybody was kind of okay with that. There wasn't the vitriol that there is now, or the
Yeah.
divide. I don't think. Um, and and now it's such a different situation. I don't know how long it can go without breaking or coming to a head. You know what I mean? Without
Insanity is unsustainable.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I don't have a problem, and I don't want to spark another like huge conversation. I don't have a problem with somebody who is a male person and wants to live as a female person. Doesn't bother me.
I
You
don't
want to wear a
either.
dress and like have long hair and stuff,
Tell you
fine.
right.
Or if you're a female person, you want to live as a male person, dude, have fun. I don't care. But don't tell my children that you can change your sex or gender at will, and that is the solution to all of their problems. That's fucking insane. That's insane. What the hell are you thinking? Don't do that. That's lying. One, that's lying to children. Two, that's lying to yourself. Like you're not a woman, sir. You're a male person, but we're all pretending that you're a woman because you appear to like that, but you're not one.
Huh.
Like, do we need to have this rider? Like,
And that's and to keep it short and not get into another great field, that is one of the primary drivers behind the demand for a regime change in Russia, because they will only endorse two genders. There are only men and women, and in Russia, and this is a major problem for the World Economic Forum left that wants to, have this ESG type of universe where everything is governed on social scores, and Russia is not ever going to meet any of those social scores. So
yeah.
that's just one of the dividing forces in there, and that is supported to me in my own research when I look at the propaganda that's over there, where they're not death to America, they're screaming death to the Satan worshippers and the pedophiles. And that's a very different take on that whole situation than we've ever seen in a this kind of conflict before. And I don't know. That's the remains. Ukraine is never going to win that. In my opinion, they don't stand a hope, and they shouldn't. That is an evil regime that's in power there, in my opinion. But and we're paying for that as well. We're
Sure are.
in so many different ways. But this is all, to me, again, part of that Hegelian principle of problem, reaction, solution. And they keep when race isn't enough for us to be divided, they keep layering it on. Critical race theory is the big one. When that isn't enough, then it's
Another aspect
and
of the extra gender thing is throwing it in your face that reality doesn't mean anything. The narrative is the most important thing. Like if you are a cat avatar, you're a cat avatar. And if you tick the cat avatar box on our little form here, cat avatar in real life, buddy, and that's your reality. And now the frame exists within bureaucracy. You see,
that's
like
completely rewriting.
they pull this
They're
fantasy into reality.
re-engineering our social contract. They are re-engineering what is our social contract in average everyday behavior and interaction.
Yes.
What we're To me, that's the base way to describe what they're doing, and it's based on absolutely nothing but this dystopian fantasy land. And they're trying to support this with this guy's like this Yuri Harari that tells the world that, oh, we're nothing more than hackable animals now. And they're buying that, and I think they're using that to propel all of the rest of this insanity.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, and there's all sorts of stuff to unpack there. The hackable
We'll
animals
have to
thing.
do this again soon.
We'll have to do it again. Yeah, we'll have to come back. Maybe I'll have you on, and I'll live stream on one of my things.
Anytime,
Yeah.
anytime, my friend.
Awesome. We'll do that.
So last thoughts before I let you go. We've already run a little bit long. This is
Yeah,
starting to become
yeah.
a
Sorry.
habit. My last ones, a couple three, have ended up being way longer than usual. But yeah,
Yeah.
last thoughts. I didn't get the rest of your links. We'll have to make sure I get them for next time. But
Yep, yep. Sorry about that.
no,
Last thoughts, man. The world is crazy, and I try and have a little fun with it. So, if you're interested in hearing about Canadian politics and it's crazy, and I'll tell you how crazy it is, and I won't lie. And if I find out that I'm wrong, I'll let you know. But I do a little tongue in cheek, and it's fun, but it's crazy. So,
well,
and keeping up with it is I find it fun. So I hope you do too. Sorry
there's
to throw you on.
never a dull moment if you're engaged in this line of work or conversation. So I
It's true.
appreciate you coming and hanging out with me. It's all I always enjoy chatting with you, Mark, because you never know where it's gonna go.
It's true, man. It's true.
Fun, right?
It's,
So there's no making any of this up. There's no script. There is no nothing.
no.
This is as real and raw and off the cuff as it gets, and it's always a lot of fun. So I appreciate you taking the time. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
A little more.
Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone. Grace, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And all the other comments, I saw a bunch of them. So cheers, everyone.
Yeah, go find Mark on Canada Poly, and I think there's I did put a link to that platform in the chat, and I'm sure you'll be able to find the rest of his stuff elsewhere, and we'll see what more we can find. Thanks a
There we
lot,
go.
Mark. You have
All right.
yourself a great evening and a Merry Christmas if we don't chat before then, but I'll probably pester you before then.
Fair enough. Yeah, we'll have to get together. All right. Merry
All right,
Christmas. And are we going to go to the green room, or are we done? Should I leave?
yeah, if you want to hang out in the green room, I'll just play us out here and call it a night, and we'll the rest of you guys out there, thanks again, and the rest of you guys out there, we will keep doing what we're doing, fighting in every way, shape, or form that we can, and keep doing what we can to make Canada Canada again. There's going to be a lot of different stuff coming over the next little while, guys. Different types of content. I've been featuring, or I will be featuring, the people that are going to be taking part the most in the LGM.news platform. We're going to get a chance to keep up with those guys here and bring them on and let them share some of what they represent, who they are, and what they do. And yeah, so on that note, stay Canadian, stay strong, stay warm. Have yourselves a Merry Christmas if you don't get a chance to tune in before then. And we will make Canada Canada again. We got some great gifts in the shop, guys. Check it out. And we'll see you in a couple of days. I got a great show coming up on Tuesday. Some of you guys will be a little bit surprised, but Shadow Davis from Shadow at Night is going to be coming on What's Up Canada for a change. So looking forward to that. See you guys all real soon. Bye for now.